My name is Gabor Furesz, and currently I work at MIT at the Kavli Institute for Astrophysics and Space Research, and my position there is Principal Research Scientist. The instruments I'm working on at the moment are two NSF-funded instruments. One is we call Winter, which is a wide field infrared survey telescope. The other instrument is also an NSF-funded but somewhat larger scope instrument called LLAMAS, which is short for Large Lancelet Array Magellan Spectrograph, which is an IFU, an integral field unit. So why did I build instruments? And I wanted to look at things, but I had no telescope. And so there was this book in Hungary about how to build a telescope and how to do things on your own as a backyard astronomer. So I started to play with lenses and, borrow a telescope from a library and then build my own. And it's also probably due to my father being very handy and doing all sorts of things at home, building our house, building furniture. So I was surrounded by tools and I saw things being built. I think success comes from two things. One is that you enjoy doing what you're doing, so you can put your heart to it. But at the same time, you should have the ability to do that thing well. You have to continuously learn and watch out for the new technologies out there and learn from your past mistakes and all that. So it's usually a few components of your design, not the whole design that is brand new. And I love attacking those problems early on and even going into a proposal by having those issues proven or at least shown a path that is feasible. Unfortunately, there's no good funding source for this. So often a proposal supports the build of a full instrument, and very often it's institutional funding that allows you to attack a smaller subset of your instrument and prove that you can do it. A novelty these days is often not that novel. The fact that you haven't heard about it, it doesn't mean that it's your idea. And maybe some people tried it and failed. And so it's often networking and knowing people and asking around, which can help you to make sure that your idea is actually really feasible or not, even before you try it. Having, good relationship, personal relationship with people, not just in your field, but with the industry, that's important. And I think vendor relationships are often overlooked in instrument building, but they are quite important because we are at the mercy of vendors. A lot of the vendors do favors by building astronomy, astronomical components. And so investing in those relationships is also a good way actually to reduce risk, because if you're nice to people and you're understanding and involve them in the process, you get more response, more feedback, and often you can actually get a product which is not even a product, but they're willing to work with you, and we need that. Very often, the challenge is that you're boxed in. You cannot leave certain things because you just cannot take the risk. And risk-taking is a part of development, is a part of forging ahead. Without that, you just, stay. So one of the biggest regrets I have, for example, is that I was, raised in an environment where all spherical optics was the safe thing to do. While I was, sort of growing into the job, technology, just went ahead, and A-spheres are, or even many years ago have been so commonplace, and I was still not thinking about them and not employing them in the design. And it's only because, I had a mindset that was not up to date. You have to be fully aware of what's going on right now, and you don't want to be bound by those things. You want to do the next thing, but that takes risk, because if nobody has done it before, it's very unlikely you're going to get funded. Somehow we got to be able to take those risks. Our concept was essentially pushing strong on a 4-arm design, and so some of that we actually carried over to our current LLAMAS instrument, and some of the technology we were thinking there. So it's a good thing to, even if your proposal is not funded, you invest a lot in, some sort of engineering and research, and it doesn't mean that you cannot carry that to some other project. So for example, we planned on using a carbon fiber bench in a vertical loading. We actually have the same thing in LLAMAS, and we could have built one big spectrograph and feed all the fibers into it and make a mosaic CCD focal plane array. But no, we decided to build 8 spectrographs, each with 3 arms, ending up with 24 optical systems and cameras. But then the economy of scale kicks in, and your overall price is actually smaller. And you can also involve students more this way. You can involve them improving those processes or procedures. Put in that proposal when the infrared, the near infrared, was a very, very interesting regime for PRV, and CARMANAS was just getting online, and we haven't actually seen the results. And there was a lot of hope that, well, for all these reasons of stellar activity and whatnot, we are going to be able to do more in the near infrared. And so, as it turns out, now many years later, when you look back, those were really promising thoughts. But then, once the exercise was fully gone through with, then it turns out, well, yes, there's useful information there, but it's not the key to the whole problem. I would say really honest modeling and analysis ahead of time is very important. So that's why I really like what this EPRV initiative of NASA currently does, is that before they are planning to build their instruments, there's a whole big, long research and analysis phase to determine what's the right way to go. I think one of the craziest stories I heard regarding that is not my stories, is Steve Vogt's story about HIRAS and how they sort of found aliens because in Hawaii there are Air Force stations for optical communication, and then they picked up in the atmosphere some scattered light of some laser communication system with very, very distinct repeating lines, and they're like, oh, what is that? And it was gone next day, and it was back, and finally his friend bought him a drink and told him, stop asking about this. One piece of advice is that in today's world, nobody can do it alone, especially if it's instrument building. Build good relationships with your coworkers, with your people. If you are a leader of a team, give them credit for what they do. And just in general, because it's a team effort, be a good person, because it's not you who's doing it all. It's a team. It's always a team, and everybody has their place and their work, and so never forget that. I think that's one of the most important things I would say.